Deuce Adams could be the spark that the Cardinals offense needs. We'll explain why. You're locked on Louisville.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show. Of course, Locked On Louisville, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today to get started. A lot of football talk on today's episode. I'm going to explain to you why I don't believe the Georgia game is going to happen in 2026. Got some news on Monday that I feel pretty confident in suggesting that the Louisville Cardinals will not play the Georgia Bulldogs next season. We're going to have a Keyjuan Brown appreciation segment. Cardinals simply cannot let him leave in the offseason. But before we talk about those topics, I'm going to address the quarterback's dilemma and explain why I believe that redshirt freshman Deuce Adams could be the spark that this Louisville offense needs. And we'll start there. Of course, quarterback play this season hasn't been the greatest. And to really discuss the full scope of the offense, you have to talk about the injuries. Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, Keyjuan Brown, all three of those running backs have been injured at one point this season. Isaac is currently out. The offensive line play wasn't great early on. Now it has improved, as has the rushing attack, which was non-existent to start the season. So I think blaming all of the offensive struggles on the quarterback position, I just don't think it's right. I think play calling has been an issue at times. It's just been a rough season for the Cardinals offense. But as the offensive line has improved, as the rushing attack has improved, and the defense has kept you in games, the quarterback play has been lacking. After you look at the Virginia game, those mistakes, and then even after Miami, just every game after Miami, it feels like quarterback play hasn't been great. It hasn't been the only issue, but I think it's been one of the main issues, to the point to where this offense needs a spark. And I think Deuce Adams could be the catalyst for Jeff Brohm's unit. Because at the moment, look, no doubt in my mind that Miller Moss cares. You can tell. You saw his emotion after the Miami win. He decided to play his last year of college football here, and it hasn't all been bad, but it's pretty clear that at the moment, Louisville 7-3, back-to-back losses against unranked teams, something's just not working. The Cardinals have to find a solution on offense with 2 weeks left to go in the season to try to end the season on a good note. I think that when you look at what you can change, quarterback play is the one indicator. And not to mention the comments that Miller Moss made about Louisville's culture, which I was not a huge fan of, and I introduced the full quote on yesterday. Sean, if you didn't get a chance to check that out, you can visit my thoughts on the Monday show, which you can find on YouTube or whatever streaming service you utilize. And I kind of laid out what I thought, and I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, which I've tried to do all season long. I was a huge Miller Moss guy in the offseason. I was a huge fan of him at the beginning of the season, just said he needed some more time to gel with guys, gave him the benefit of the doubt, but it's pretty clear that things just aren't working. And it happens. And that's why I think going with a backup quarterback could be that spark, because we've seen it time and time again, how switching quarterbacks sort of jump starts offenses here and there. We're seeing it this year with Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss replaced Austin Simmons, and now Ole Miss is sitting here basically a lock to make the college football playoffs. Not sure that happens if they don't make the switch to the backup quarterback. Kentucky, Cutter Boley replaces Zach Calzada, and that offense looks tremendously better. And one of the rebuttals to that point is going to be, well, it just might not work. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But here's the thing. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. I know quarterback play hasn't been the main issue, but the passing attack is the reason why Louisville's offense hasn't been as explosive, because the rushing attack has definitely regained its footing. Offensive line play has been better. Hasn't been perfect, but it's been better. But if the rebuttal is, well, it might not work, at this point, what do you have to lose? The offense really isn't doing all that well anyway. Why not try it out? And then another rebuttal is, well, there's a reason why he's sitting. And I point back to the sample size. There are so many historical examples of backup quarterbacks that were previously thought to not be ready for the moment. They get their opportunity and they seize the opportunity and thus never look back. And you look back in hindsight and say, wow, how do we miss this at that time? But that's how it is, right? I mean, you never know a guy's ready until you see it. And I think for him to develop and show you that he's ready, he needs those live in-game reps. So if the reality is that he's not ready, then I think we have to have a whole different conversation about how we are in year 3 of Jeff Brohm's tenure, and we still don't have an internal developmental option that you can throw out there. I understand that Jeff Brohm's offense is not easy for younger quarterbacks to pick up and be able to lead and conduct at the highest level. I understand that. But at some point, you got to try something different, in my opinion. And I think that with Deuce Adams, with as live of an arm that he has, with the poise in the pocket, dual threat opportunities, I'm not going to go as far as saying he's a true dual threat quarterback. I think he's more of a pocket passer that is willing to get out and move when he needs to. But again, I keep coming back to the point to where you're 7-3. There's no shot for you to get to the conference championship. The playoffs are out of the conversation. Bowl games, you're probably going to have some guys opt out. Yes, I still value the postseason, but you see guys opt out. And why not give Deuce Adams opportunities? It would be different if this offense was humming and things were going good from a passing game. But you have Colin Lacey and Chris Bell, and you can't throw the ball downfield. And I think it is mainly a part due to teams just understanding that Louisville's not going to throw the ball downfield like they did last year when they had Tyler Shook. Chris Bell and Colin Lacey are great receivers. You have a good rushing attack. You have an improved offensive line. Not great one, but improved one. Why not give Deuce Adams some in-game reps so you have an opportunity to see what you have? Because right now it seems like Miller is locking on to his read of who he knows he's going to go to automatically, and he's not really going through the progressions at a high level. And when the pocket breaks down, he panics a little bit and takes some unnecessary sacks and puts the ball in harm's way more than he needs to. Now, he didn't turn the ball over against Clemson, but he took a couple of unnecessary sacks. I'm not sure, full transparency, I'm not sure if Louisville will make a quarterback change at all this season. If you made me place a wager, I bet that Miller Moss does start the game against SMU. This is just my opinion. I'm not sitting here telling you that Deuce Adams is going to be the starter on Saturday. I'm sitting here telling you that I believe he should be. Because why not? You're 7-3. If your rebuttal is, well, we could not move the football, we're already struggling to move the football as it is, throwing it downfield, because your rushing attack is still going to be good. If you can't throw the football, then it is what it is, right? It also, another aspect to look at is it gives you an opportunity to kind of see what you get for next year. There is a very, very good possibility that Louisville will go to the portal and get another quarterback for 2026. People might not want to hear that. I understand the frustration. I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen. But what if Deuce Adams shows you some things over the next couple of weeks that might change your mind and say, you know what, we might go bring in a portal quarterback just to have competition. But the point is clear that there will be a competition because Deuce Adams showed us that he can lead this offense. And for me, that's what it kind of comes down to. Things aren't working now. Why not play for the future and see if you can get that spark? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But try something different, because the offense has been trending in the wrong direction against some lackluster defenses over the past couple of weeks. Now, when I say the offense has been trending in the wrong direction, know that I'm talking about the passing game, because the rushing attack has still been really good, even in the absence of Isaac Brown, because Keyjuan Brown has been balling out. You got to do whatever you can to make sure he's still a Cardinal next season. We'll break it down when we come back. You're tuned to Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a larger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube and TikTok, 5 days a week, your team every day. Also, thank you to the everydayers. If this is a part of your daily routine, welcome back. If this is your first time tuning in, we're glad you're here. But thank you all so much for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network on planet Earth. It is much appreciated. And speaking of appreciation, we got to give some flowers to Keyjuan Brown. Keyjuan Brown, in an era of switching schools in favor of more playing time right away or seeing the field early in your career, in an era of going somewhere just because they're offering more money, Keyjuan Brown has been one of the exceptions, right? He has stuck around, redshirt sophomore season, and he has put his head down and he's worked, even when he's played behind great running backs, Jawar Jordan, Isaac Arendo, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson. He was even behind Maurice Turner, Don Chaney Jr. The list goes on. This year is sort of the same thing. He decided to take his name out of the portal. He went into the portal, and Louisville was able to convince him to stay. And man, am I glad that he made that decision. 5'10", 210-pound running back, has carried the ball 81 times for 592 yards and 6 touchdowns, 7.3 yards per carry. Now, here's the thing. He doesn't have the explosiveness or the speed as, say, Isaac or Duke, but he's showing you that even though he's more of a power back, he has that elusiveness. He hits that hole with conviction, and he can evade contact. And even when he does get contacted, he's able to fight through and get some yards after contact. I think he's having a career year. 7.3 yards per carry. Even with more volume, it is pretty significantly higher than his first 2 seasons. As a receiver, 11 catches for 118 yards last year, 5 for 53. But what has impressed me most is, first thing, even when you had Isaac Brown, he stepped up when his number was called late in games. For example, Boston College, he had 10 for 95 and a touchdown. He iced that game. He had the breakaway rushing touchdown that put that game out of reach. The very next week, 12 carries, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And again, he had the I won't say go ahead. He had the touchdown that put the game out of reach again. But it's the past 2 weeks. The past 2 weeks going up against Cal, who didn't have a terrible rushing defense. Well, actually, it was probably the other way around. by the numbers, I don't think their rushing defense was terrible. Clemson's rushing defense wasn't terrible. It's their passing defense that was the issue. Against Cal, he hasn't found the end zone in the past 2 weeks, but 14 for 136 against the Golden Bears. That's 9.7 yards per carry. Against Clemson last week, 15 for 135, averaging 9 yards per carry. You want to know who was going to step up when Isaac went down? It's Keyjuan. And part of me hates this, doesn't hate this for Keyjuan. And I'm not saying that part of me hates this for Duke because of what Keyjuan's doing. I hate that Duke has been injured for the majority of the season. Duke Watson has 43 carries for 122 yards. He's averaging 2.8 yards per carry. If he's fully healthy, he looks a lot better. He just has not been healthy all season. He's dealt with a foot injury that has no doubt affected his level of play, but he came back as early as he did because the Cardinals needed him. Isaac Brown gets hurt. Duke's like, hey, we kind of need you, right? Maybe he came back before he was 100%. You could tell he doesn't have that same burst as he did last year in which he led the nation in yards per rush. Do I think Duke Watson is washed? Absolutely not. Do I think when he's healthy, you're going to see him be much more effective like you did last year? I do. I definitely do. It sucks in that sense. It's great to see Keyjuan step up because if it wasn't for him, then who knows what your rushing attack looks like. You have some younger guys in the program, but are they ready for ACC ball? Not sure. Not sure at all. But I think one thing, you look toward the offseason, you might say, well, Dalton, why are we talking about the offseason? There are 2 weeks to go. Because here in less than a month, things are going to get really real. Things are going to get real. Some guys obviously are going to enter the portal because it happens. You're going to do your best to fight off other teams for some other players. The running backs room is going to be critical. Now, I will say this. I don't really worry about Jeff Brohm, Chris Barkley, and company with the running backs because in the 3 years, of course, some of these guys were Satterfield guys, but Jawar Jordan, Isaac Garendo, Isaac Brown, Keyjuan Brown, Duke Watson. I'm not really worried about the running backs room. You got Lakai Tompkins coming in. I think, is it possible for Louisville to bring all three guys back? Meaning Isaac, Duke, and Keyjuan. I think it's possible. I think many have operated under the assumption or line of thinking that they might not bring all three back. There's a good chance that they won't bring all three back. I would love if they did. I will say that I think you have to definitely bring two of the three back here. I think that that's kind of where I'm at, is like Isaac and Keyjuan. I think they complement each other so well. You've got the speed back, you've got the power back. That's no disrespect to Duke. I think that having all three of the guys would be great, but I just, after watching Keyjuan Brown play, you see what Isaac can do. Like, number one, how do you keep all these guys happy? And number two, I just don't know how you can let any of them leave. Now, I understand it's not so much of a matter of let, because other teams are going to come calling. You know how this works. Teams are going to try to poach your best players. It's how it works in this new portal NIL era. But I'm looking at this, and I'm watching Keyjuan Brown week after week continue to ball out, and I'm like, man, give the guy what he wants. Give him a blank check. I know you've got some needs across the team, but if you want to have a dominant rushing presence next season, I think Keyjuan Brown has to be involved to some extent. So shout out to Key. Wanted to give him his own appreciation segment. We didn't talk about him much on yesterday's Clemson recap, but on this show, as critical as we are, we also like to double down on our support and our praise for some great performances, great games, and great seasons. So speaking of seasons, 2026, guys, going to be here before you know it. Next season is what? 9 months away, 10 months away. And I think that Louisville's schedule could be changing soon because I'm going to explain why. This is my opinion. This isn't a fact. This is my opinion. I don't think Louisville's going to play Georgia next year. I'll tell you why when we come back. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Card Nation sent out a tweet on Sunday. I was about to say yesterday, but on Sunday, because it's being recorded on Monday night, on Sunday, asking about mailbag questions. We're going to bring a mailbag back. Gosh, I can't speak. We're going to bring a mailbag back this week. So get any questions in the YouTube comments below. You can also send them via DM to me on X at @dpence_. The Locked On Louisville X page is at @LO_Louisville. But overall, going to answer a lot of great questions that you all have already asked. But let's talk about the 2026 schedule. Some significant news dropped on Monday as it relates to Georgia, not Louisville, but Georgia, but it all ties together. When the SEC decided to move to 9 games starting next season, this game was going to be in jeopardy because Georgia already has Georgia Tech scheduled. They have to play a Power 4 team or Notre Dame that's not in the SEC. And that game would presumably be Georgia Tech. So we've already kind of thought that this game was in jeopardy. We talked about that a couple months ago. Well, on Monday, news came out that Georgia will open up the season against Tennessee State. Now, Dalton, why does that matter? Well, adding Tennessee State to the schedule means that Georgia currently has 13 regular season games. So they got to drop one. That means either Louisville, Western Kentucky, or Georgia Tech is gone. There's no shot that Georgia takes the Ramblin' Wreck off the schedule. You're not going to take that rivalry game off. So that leaves Louisville and Western Kentucky. And you can say what you want about, the SEC is going to duck smoke, yada, yada, yada. Hey, I can't disagree with that, right? I would say that Georgia is one of those teams that, they scheduled a home-and-home neutral site with Clemson. But, yeah, if they take this game off, then, yeah, you're kind of ducking it a little bit, even though Georgia's a really good team. But I'm not here to argue about, Georgia's scared. I'm here to argue from, a logistical standpoint for Georgia. There's 3 reasons as to why I believe that Georgia will choose to keep Western Kentucky over Louisville. Number 1, level of competition. You have 9 SEC games. You have Georgia Tech, who's been one of the better teams in the ACC this year. Why not, ease your schedule up a little bit and go with WKU instead of Louisville? Reason number 2, the game against WKU is at home. The game against Louisville is on the road. And reason number 3, which might be one of the main motives here, according to FBS schedules, who does a good job of kind of breaking this down, there's a excerpt in this article. It says, according to copies of the contracts, the cancellation fee for the Western Kentucky game is $1.9 million. The cancellation fee for Louisville is $1 million per game, as the two are scheduled to meet in Athens in 2027. The schools could also negotiate a lesser fee. So if you cancel both Louisville games, because I don't think that Louisville allows you to cancel this year in 2026, and then, by the way, we can still play in Athens. No shot. You're playing a home and home, or we're not playing at all, is the way that I would like to see Louisville go about this. And I would also tell Georgia, hey, you're going to pay up. You got to pay up either way. Might as well pay us, because WKU is not going to let you out of this. So might as well pay us. If you pay $2 million, it's going to be even cheaper in the long run when you have to pay 1.9 this year and more money to cancel on another opponent next year, in my opinion. So I think that this series in general is going to get canceled. This is my opinion. This isn't fact. This is my opinion of what I think is going to happen. I'm reading between the lines here, and I think that ultimately we are going to get the news that Louisville and Georgia will cancel the series, and the Cardinals will have to scramble. So from a Georgia perspective, it makes sense for 3 reasons. Do you want to pay less money to cancel a game and get to play another home game against a non-Power 4 team, or do you want to go on the road and play at Louisville and have to pay more money to cancel the Western Kentucky game? Seems pretty clear as to what they're going to do, at least from where I sit. If I'm Louisville, hey, man, give me that money and let's use it to go get a transfer portal quarterback or build more of a roster next year. But how does Louisville respond if this were to happen? Like, let's say that it does come to fruition and the Cardinals end up having to scramble. Well, looking at the 2026 non-conference schedule, Louisville would then have Villanova on Saturday, September 5th, Charlotte at home on Saturday, September 26th, and then at Kentucky on November 28th. So you've got those 3 games, and I know Jeff Brohm has made it pretty clear that he likes to schedule tough teams. So I think that there's 3 different ways that Louisville could go about this. A, more than likely, you schedule an FCS team like a EKU or a Murray State or a Morehead State. That seems like the most likely because, like it or not, the Cardinals probably won't have many options to schedule games because most teams have their schedule already taken care of. Now, there are a list of some that I wouldn't mind seeing Louisville play, and I'll mention a couple of those here in a second. The second opportunity, option B, would be you could play a other Power 4 team. I would love that. Love to play a team that you don't get to see often. Or option C, you can do what Virginia and NC State did this year and have one of those non-conference or one of those conference and non-conference games where both those teams played, but it didn't count against your record. So I'm going to bring up a couple of teams that, according to FBS schedules, this was an article by Kevin Kelly on October 15th of this year. He brings up a couple teams that still have non-conference openings. I'm going to mention some that I wouldn't mind seeing Louisville play. Memphis is one. I think that would be pretty cool. You could see the Cardinals have a home and home here, and then, was it FedEx Field? Is that what it's called down in Memphis? I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think that could be a cool game. South Carolina is another one. Now, they do play at Clemson, so will they want to add another ACC team? Probably not, but I still think it would be cool. UNLV is an interesting one. I want a home and home. I want to play a team that you don't really play much just for the sake of variation. USC is another team. Going down the list, Washington State could make some sense. Oregon State to Independence at the moment. There's so many different ways that you could go, but there aren't that many options. Like, I mean, I guess you could add a conference game that's not a conference game, like Miami would be one. The other ACC teams that are open, you're already playing. Who knows? Or you could play a mid-major team like FIU or Florida Atlantic, Colorado State. Army apparently has an opening. Boise State apparently has an opening. You can go to FBS schedules to kind of look at the full list, and I would assume that that's accurate because usually it is. But long story short, I don't think Louisville and Georgia play in 26. I think it's going to be out of Louisville's control. But whatever happens, happens. And I just want to see a team that Louisville doesn't play much come to Cardinal Stadium. Again, my opinion, not a fact, just what I think. That's going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards.